In Silicon Valley, there's a lot of origin stories of companies that had the right idea but were completely at the wrong time, and yet they paved the path for everything else.
There are a handful of stories that define Silicon Valley. You know, there are legends, and General Magic was one of the legends.
You have to believe, you have to be proud, you have to be absolutely convinced that you're going to bend the way the world is moving and you're going to take it in a different direction. If you're always playing it safe and you're not failing, there's a very high probability you're not doing anything particularly important.
No matter how big we dreamed, the fact that you could touch the lives of billions, it was vaguely imaginable, but the scale of it was inconceivable.
The reason you should care about the story of General Magic is because it involves something fundamental, and that is, failure isn't the end. Failure is actually the beginning.
The reason this story so haunts the people who were involved, that they still live with it, is because they knew that they were right.
Did it fail? I mean, the company itself failed. The ideas didn't fail. The people who worked there didn't fail. So, was it a failure?
I was in high school, 16 at the time. I didn't really want to go to class. Every waking moment that I wasn't in school, I was on the computer, learning something about it, programming it, doing something, talking to friends about it. I was the geek, you know, the Revenge of the Nerds. For me, every weekend was fixing things or building things from the age of 3 or 4. Soapbox derby racer, we could repair lawnmowers or what have you. But with this, I could create new things. I could sit there and I could program a game, or I could program graphics, I could do things, and you spoke a language that no one else knew, and you could tell people, and they're like, wow. And then it was the Mac, and it was all about the Mac. What is that? There were names of people like Andy Hertzfeld, Joanna Hoffman, Bill Atkinson, rock stars in Rolling Stone, but had nothing to do with music. They were my heroes.
My name's Andy Hertzfeld. I bought and fell in love with an Apple II in 1978, went to work for Apple in 1979, and was lucky enough to help design the Macintosh.
You have to go and find out more about them, and how can I go work with them? Because I wanted to be like them.
Hello, I am Macintosh. It sure is great to get out of that bag.
January 24th, 1984, the Macintosh was being publicly introduced to the world for the very first time.
You know what I remember? We were sitting here and there was this roar, just a sort of like a sound wave just coming at us. It was a culmination of years of work, of years of expectation. This was it.
What we're trying to do with Macintosh is take away yet another barrier to usage of personal computers.
One of the neatest things about Macintosh was we had a chance to change the way people thought of computers.
We called it the computer for the rest of us because computers weren't for ordinary people. We thought we had a chance to make a difference. Steve Jobs just drummed it into us. He was just such a brilliant motivator.
Greatest people are self-managing. They don't need to be managed. What they need is a common vision. Once they know what to do, they'll go figure out how to do it.
We truly believe with every fiber of our being that if we can solve that problem of making computers accessible to an ordinary person by making them easy enough to use, we could truly change the world.
But behind the scenes, behind that facade, things were changing. Steve Jobs was involved in palace politics that was much bigger at that moment than the Mac. I was just too tunnel vision to be able to appreciate that.
I got a phone call like around 10 a.m. in the morning from someone on the Mac team saying, "You won't believe this, but Steve got fired." The core team was stunned. That said, things were a mess in many ways. But Steve and John Sculley didn't agree about what to do with it. Fights escalated to the point where the board told Sculley he had to remove Steve. Wrenching decision for everyone, both Steve and Sculley and everyone close to them.
Since the Mac, really, I think we were all looking for the next thing because it really jaded us for anything else. Any other project that kept coming up kind of fizzled very quickly because it didn't have the grandness of the vision. It didn't have the grandness of potential impact. And now what?
Good evening. I'm Mark Peratt. Today, many people believe that information tools are the third technology to change the course of civilization, changing our relationship to nature, to each other, to the very way we experience reality.
The Aspen Institute attracted some of the most amazing people. I had a place where they could speak freely to each other in private. Cyrus Vance or Henry Kissinger or the Shah Banu of Iran, or very, very powerful people that you would never expect to meet. Those were the people, that was the teaching there. You could, and in fact were responsible and had a mandate to invent a future. Because the future your parents handed you was broken. And so that started me in the track of saying, what can I do to create the future? There comes a moment where for some reason you are in the future and you see something very, very clearly. You just see it. That's what happened to me. And I went into the future and I saw the world which I thought was very real and very tangible. And I stood in that moment inside it and I looked around me and it was there. It was all there. It was basically the general magic vision. It was going to be so revolutionary that it would take over the world. So this book I wrote in 1989, and this was a compilation of the ideas. And it was called Pocket Crystal. And this is what we came up with in 1989. And there it is. We really had it. We definitely had it.
Business is just stories. That's what people do. They tell stories, and the ones who tell the most compelling stories are the ones who, end up making the most progress forward. And Mark was a great storyteller. After Steve Jobs left in 1985, a lot of people were pretty depressed, and they wondered what Apple's future was going to be like. Could Apple still go on without Steve Jobs there? Mark was one of the very first people to see that computing in the future was going to be not just about computation, it was going to be about communications, it was going to be about content, and it was going to be very, very personal, something that you could hold in your hand.
And it was a telephone. It was essentially going to be a smartphone with a lot of intelligence in it. Imagine a personal computer with applications organized around these personal wants and needs. An object through which you communicated with yourself about everything that you're thinking about. It was the way you reached out and touched other people, and it was the way then you reached beyond that into the larger world.
Mark always came with his giant red book, and he would thumb through the pages, and he was able to romance me. He was able to romance Bill Atkinson, Andy Hertzfeld.
Please leave a message and we will return your call as quickly as possible.
I saw a message on my answering machine from Bill Atkinson, who was my mentor at Apple, my hero. I just saw the greatest thing ever. You got to come back to Apple to work with me on it. And the very next day, Mark Peratt came over to my house with his models and stuff.
Wouldn't it be nice if all these notes, which are very useful, I could have with me when I needed them? Wouldn't it be nice, I suppose, if letters that were important arrived, fell out of the sky?
I was a little skeptical at first because Mark is such a slick salesperson, but I saw that, hey, this is pretty cool.
And when I saw the concepts, and when I talked to Mark, and I got the same butterflies in my stomach. I had the same feeling that I had when I first encountered the Macintosh. This book was not just ideas, not just possibilities, but this was a complete and thorough collection of the vision of the future, scenario by scenario.
Mark said, we're going to create what comes after the personal computer. John, he said, I think this can be the future of Apple, but I'm not sure it can be done inside of Apple. I think it's got to be a separate company. I helped Mark get the investment from the Apple board, and so Apple ended up spinning out General Magic. This was the beginning of what became, I think, the most important company to come out of Silicon Valley that nobody's ever heard of.
There was this aura of secrecy. We knew the people who went in. We knew they were smart people. You know, it had Apple's fairy dust sprinkled on it. So we had no idea what it was. But by the rumors, it seemed just captivating.
There's this company, it has Andy and Bill, and they're going off to do something. And I was like, I don't know what they're doing yet, but I know I need to be there. I was dressed up, I had my suit coat and a tie, and I was there about 8:30 in the morning. I knocked on the door, no one answered, so I opened the door and it's very quiet. I'm like, where is everybody? And I look over, and there are two people in this office, and they had been there all night. And they looked at me with these dazed eyes, and they went, we're not hiring. And that was it. This is Wendell. Wendell Sanders. This is Mike.
Everybody in the Valley knew that Magic was doing something really cool and really hot. They didn't know exactly what it was. Everybody wanted to be there, and people literally would sleep on the doorstep to try to get an interview or get into the building.
I mean, from your perspective, is this unique? Or is this everywhere in the Valley and not so special?
No, it's not everywhere in the Valley.
The best, the brightest, the coolest, the smartest.
Hi, Megan. Welcome aboard. Oh, smile, you're on candid camera.
I was always building things. I come from a long line of engineers. And so the idea of going to Silicon Valley and learning with these extraordinary people how to make products and create things and do just amazing things, that's what I wanted to do. It was drawing me.
Andy Hertzfeld had gotten my name as a Mac developer, and so he called me.
Sorry to offend you with this non-disclosure thing.
But he couldn't tell me what it was, and I was just thinking, oh my God, I'm talking to Andy Hertzfeld right now.
My parents are looking at me going, I don't know anything about this General Magic. Why don't you go to a company you know, like IBM or Microsoft? Can't you go there where it's well known? I'm like, no. I want to go work for General Magic.
He would call me 10, 15 times a day, just begging, please get my resume. And he would just ask me, please, I will not stop until I work there.
And so I go into the interview First thing in, people sat me down on the floor, ripped my tie off, ripped off my jacket and said, "That's not how we work here." So I go home back to Michigan, packed up all my things and put them in a car, and then I'm like, I gotta hear something. So I call Dee, "What's going on?" "We have a process, we're going through it, we're gonna have a meeting, we'll talk about you, we'll let you know."
He would not stop calling me.
Then I started calling like every day.
I said, please call him because he is driving me crazy.
I got the call. "Congratulations, you got the job." And I just went nuts.
Email from me to John Scully. We realized that the root of our strength was that we understood how people use information machines better than anyone else. This is our early vision for the product. A tiny computer, a phone, a very personal object. It must be beautiful. It must offer the kind of personal satisfaction that a fine piece of jewelry brings. It will have a perceived value even when it is not being used. It should offer the comfort of a touchstone, the tactile satisfaction of a seashell, the enchantment of a crystal. Once you use it, you won't be able to live without it. It's just not another telephone. It must be something else.
So a lot of people in the Valley, they have this idea that they're changing the world. And they say that a lot. They sometimes call themselves chief change agent and stuff like that. It's mostly bullshit. But they have to believe it in order, you don't make a photo app and you're not changing the world with a photo app. You're just not. And it's not solving cancer. It's not solving poverty. It's not solving climate change. They all have this idea that they're doing something bigger than what the actual thing is. But it's like the car or the light bulb. The idea of a computer in your pocket is a really big idea. It's a device that allows them to access everything. But back then, there wasn't an internet. There wasn't the worldwide network of information. There weren't people using it. There wasn't cell phones then. There wasn't, wireless. Like everything that there wasn't. The reason I started covering it, because when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is where it leads. The idea of mobile computing started at General Magic.
Hey guys, got the chips from Motorola. Yay!
Hey, right. Cool.
When you started to hear about the different people who were also there, I was like, Dan Winkler? Dan Winkler's here? I know Dan, I would read all his books. Or Scott Canaster, Jimmy Friedlander, Susan Kerr, they're here too.
What am I doing right now?
Making the Paradigm movie.
And then all of a sudden, Andy Hertzfeld walks by, Joanna Hoffman walks by, and you're like, oh my God. You're like, you're resonating. You're like, the rock stars are here. And then they just sit down on the floor next to you.
Yeah, you did?
It wasn't just the best of the Apple of the 80s. It was the best of the Apple early 90s that were all coming. And here's this whole team of people bubbling and bursting, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get along. I have this kind of longer hair and I got my high tops from Detroit. I was the lowest guy in the totem pole. Give them some stuff and try things.
I was one of the chips had any bugs in them.
I was only going into engineering because I knew that it would be like a toolkit I could use and someone would hire me. But then I got into it, it turns out that, oh geez, I was actually really good at circuit design. Like who knew, who knew?
Service I would most like to see would be a shopping service. I could order everything from my Teletouch.
A lot of times people in their 20s are out, in the bars and hanging out, but our 20s are spent, just powering through with each other, building these extraordinary things together.
I hadn't had that many first days of jobs before, and I wondered, is the first day of every job like this? And
The answer to that is no.
Zed, the cell broke open.
I met Andy Hertzfeld for the first time. You know, he was already famous. I knew what he looked like. In my world, he was one of the superstars. And it's a little embarrassing to put it this way, but that was pretty much like falling in love.
Okay, let's try to start the meeting. The first obvious thing to mention is that we're not alone here today. We're being filmed for posterity. It'll be a good historical or hysterical document sometime in the future anyway. And so I guess...
Well, I was the black sheep. I was a filmmaker. I'd never heard of a startup.
I'm wired for sound here. It shouldn't be too disruptive.
What I understood was that these people were doing something so charmingly different, so charmingly new, so fun. And you could trust them because what they were driven towards wasn't a job. The job never came up. The salary never came up. It was where we were headed. We were going to change the world.
We all basically sat on the floor. No, I did not. They all basically sat on the floor to talk about what it was. What are we going to call this handheld product?
So we've been talking about possible names for what is the device. Now, one of the things that's really special is that it's in my pocket with me all the time. It's a very different thing than computers. It's something that is in my pocket, and I run my life out of it and through it.
It was this notion of anytime, anywhere communication. The notion that it wasn't just going to be a phone, but you could do all these other things with it. To integrate all that into one thing that I could hold in my hand, I thought, oh my God, if I could have one of those, I'm ready. And that was how things started.
We're rolling.
We are?
So anyway, show me what's in the box.
Okay, we're trying to make something that people love. We need it to be like your watch. You know, Bill's like saying your watch, your glasses, your wallet, something that you like the color, you like the way it feels. Now this is a huge, ugly thing, but we had to start somewhere. We had to start with components that we could buy off the shelf because you're working from wishes and ideas of how you wish it would be, and real components that you can buy that are cheap enough that you can make the product reasonable so people can afford it, because if it costs $1 million, forget it.
Was that the first one or in the beginning?
This is in the very beginning, and one of the problems with this was that the touchscreen was extremely noisy, and it just didn't have the resolution. It would be a horrible experience for people to use this thing. So that was actually our hardest component. We were pushing the envelope in every single front. So we're figuring, what size should it be? What sensor? What electric plug? How many buttons should we have, if any?
The feeling was that anything was possible. You could shoot as high as you wanted to here, and as a team, we were going to be able to do it.
The purpose of doing all this is to go out and create prototypes so that the team can plug them into the Mac and run the software behind it and experience what a user would experience.
The array of personalities, they were all like little nuclear power plants, each one of them, working on solving these difficult problems.
For me, the challenge was challenging myself to try to work at that level. I was a newbie. A lot of people got to just do. You know, if you're the young guy on the team, you had to learn and do, so you had to work double or triple time.
He was our college kid.
I'm hooking up a demo so that we can see keyboards working with the device.
Tony wanted to learn everything from everyone.
Whatever it is, yes. And more of it, and how can I do more to help?
Is it important? If you want to hook up disk drives and things of that nature, yeah. It's really important.
I wanted to make it work really seamlessly and fast.
This is basically our first test of our, basically a first demo of our peripheral system for the walkabout.
And this was a technology to string peripherals together. Today we call it USB. And so we were creating USB before the world knew about it.
Finally works.
We decided to make everything. I mean, we were making it all. See, right now, the whole class, Viewable Texture, is one formatter for everything. That meant we were custom building every piece. It's kind of like hand assembling a car rather than using a factory. And so it's insane. It's insane.
In many projects, you might build one or two innovative breakout things, and then you build on top of a lot of existing stuff. You kind of stand on the shoulders of giants. And we weren't doing that at Channel Magic. We were building the giant from the toes all the way up to his head.
We couldn't find a touchscreen to solve this problem. In fact, at one point we had to invent one.
This Wendell, who works for Wendell Center, he came up with this idea of a touchscreen that would be balanced on at 4 points, and as you pushed on it, you could sense touch. So as you touch it in any particular place, you can do the math. So you do the whole force minus the X and Y, and you can figure out where you are, whether you're touching T or whether you're touching a caps lock.
How small will it finally be, do you think?
Someday, Dick Tracy wristwatch. But right now, in the beginning, we're starting with a screen size that's probably about that big.
Technically, it was really, really hard to build something the size of those models. The technology just wasn't there yet. But hey, that was okay to build something a little clunkier for the first generation. We knew if it caught on, it would eventually get down there.
The touchscreen's a little funky.
What was this thing going to look like? You know, we knew what size screen we were going to have, but we didn't know necessarily everything we were going to put on that screen. The thing about computer programming is you're making something out of nothing.
This is not nerds creating for other nerds here. There's a creative process here that is much like making a film or painting a picture or doing a play. This is very creative, which is a surprise to a lot of people. This is a very creative process.
You mean artistic?
Artistic.
Yeah, you mean artistic.
Yeah.
I'll ask him about that. Okay. Yeah, that's absolutely. That got the crew yesterday.
The common ground between Apple and what we did at General Magic and the 60s was idealism. Our art could make a difference in the lives of everyone. Everyone you know and everyone you don't know.
I think communications is the most fundamentally human thing that we do, and that's really why what we're doing cuts to the heart of who we are. That's what distinguishes people more than any other thing, I think, than this sense of community, a sense of reaching out from yourself to someone else. One of the things Bill and I do is just by word of mouth, passing that spirit down to the next generation.
No. We were always saying, well, wouldn't it be great if we did that? And Andy would do this. He would stay up all night coding the thing that we just came up with the idea that evening. He would stay up all night and bring in a fully working thing the next morning.
So we created this concept of different rooms. And Andy went off, and over the weekend, he completely rewrote the system to implement this hallways thing. So we come back, and it's all there. That shouldn't have been possible for one person to do that much work in one go.
Passion is the thing that breaks through logic and makes you try to get every part right, not because of some science, but because of your feeling of pride and desire to do something great.
All you have to do is tap on this little letter creating icon, and your favorite stationery pops out of the drawer. You notice it looks like a little postcard.
There was mail, there was calendar, everything was communicating with each other, and tiny little things that would delight people, that would wink at people, that would just make it so special.
One interesting area we haven't done is expressing emotions. What stamp would you use to express anger at someone?
Emoticons. Today, emoticons are a big deal. In those days, no one knew what it was. There was no such thing. Andy and Bill disappeared and came back with emoticons that were animated. They were amazingly cute and intelligent.
Only one person hated the happy face. It's like
Who was that?
I've certainly never worked with a team as ambitious. It's almost like we didn't care about what made sense. You know, how else can it be good enough? There was a confidence, even arrogance there too.
Are you kidding me? This is fun.
It was like we could walk through walls and do anything.
Being there with all these people who are like, we can change the world, and we're going to do it, and let me show you how.
They were on a joyride, a rocket ride, with all the freedom to do what they wanted to do. Now it's getting them to understand this thing cost money. Real money.
In 1990, there was no digital telecommunications industry. It did not exist anywhere in the world. We were in the analog era. There were no digital cell phones. There was no World Wide Web.
We were talking about bringing millions of people onto a network that had to be industrial strength, reliable, and run 24/7 by 365 with no glitches. Who else can do that but the telephone company? That's who we needed, and that meant AT&T. The AT&T folks came in this gigantic stretch limo that was too big to get into the parking lot, and I was watching them out of the window of the second floor conference room, watching them trying to maneuver the car into the parking lot. They just couldn't do it. So they eventually get out of their car and they troop upstairs. And they're still waiting for Bill, and people are staring at their shoes and a little uncomfortable. That was not a good start.
What happened?
So Bill finally shows up. He hadn't taken a shower in a week. He was wearing a Hawaiian shirt. He stunk like a goat. You could see the noses wrinkle on the faces of the three AT&T guys. But they launched the demo.
So this is a touch screen, so I can go ahead and touch it, right?
No one had ever thought of the kind of ideas that Mark, Bill, and Andy had instantiated in this demo.
Another stand. Would you like a cookie? Oh no, I've eaten too many. Would you like a cookie?
The AT&T folks said, we're in. And they joined us as the first network partner.
You gotta have AT&T. You gotta have Apple, that's your roots. You gotta have Motorola and Sony. They make the devices. And you gotta have Philips, they're also gonna make devices. Without those, we couldn't have been General Magic.
And we charged them $6 million for the privilege of joining, each. Here was this little startup in Silicon Valley that was going to change the world. Everybody was afraid of being left out of the vision.
This company scale is small, but thinking so big. Immediately decided to join it. Yes, just fun. 1 second we decided.
Sony Japan was unbelievably great, but I think one of the things that Mark underestimated is how each one of those relationships contributed to an enormous level of complexity.
We have these three bears out there, and we're Goldilocks. We're trying to dance with the three bears. Here's Goldilocks. Mark is Goldilocks. Rah, rah. How about you? Rah, rah, rah.
The vision was going to happen because we were putting together 16 of the largest companies on the planet who are natural enemies into the same room at the same time. We knew we were innovating. No one had done anything like that. And if it succeeded, it would change everything. And that took a warlike energy. That was fighting. That was battle.
We had no choice but to keep quiet about the things we were doing because other companies were interested in it as well. And we tried to keep secrecy at a level that would give a small company like General Magic time to create, time to develop.
Everybody had to shred everything. We couldn't put everything in one bin. We had to wait and kind of dole it out to various different places. We were asked not to talk about it outside of the office because we didn't want any of it leaked.
So there was this buzz around the company, but it really was kind of this cipher. We had to keep it under wraps. Part of that was this PR strategy that we had only one shot to make news.
While we're in business development stage, security is essential. If the concept leaks, we lose our competitive edge. Please use the highest level of personal attention to security, including, if asked by an Apple colleague, not on the team, say nothing. If asked by a non-Apple person, tell me immediately.
Now, it should be noted, John Sculley was running Apple at the time.
In that sense, he was our ally, or so we thought.
I was getting intense pressure from the Apple board and from the Apple management team as to why was I spending so much time on General Magic. And Apple was developing in parallel a business that it owned 100% of called Newton. And that looked like they could ship a product.
10 years ago, we launched Macintosh, a revolution for the desktop. And today we are launching Newton, a revolution for the pocket.
John Sculley gave a keynote address at the 1993 Consumer Electronics Shows where he announced what we were doing.
Imagine being able to take a cellular telephone and be able to be paged on the phone, then write a little note and fax it off to someone else in response.
Except he announced it as something Apple was doing. We thought Apple wasn't doing it, and we found out from that speech that they were.
I wish I could say that I was hurt. I wasn't just hurt, I was angry. I was really angry.
They had decided to make something essentially based on Mark's models.
I thought I thought they would coexist, you know. And so I wasn't really concerned that Newton would hurt General Magic.
They were our closest partner who really gave us our life. And so that when we found out they were trying to kill us, we felt completely betrayed.
You want to know about the Newton? I'll tell you about the Newton. The Newton.
The Newton announcement caused vision envy on the part of all of our partners. They thought that Scully's was bigger than theirs. I want that vision thing. Do that vision thing for me too. And so they wanted to immediately go out there and introduce.
We've got to explain the vision such that everybody gets it. The press gets it, the corporations get it. It's all clear.
Leading the way to a new age of personal communication, creating a revolutionary electronic messaging environment. We call this environment the cloud.
The fact that the Newton was going to ship and that it was getting all this publicity meant that we had to come out of stealth mode earlier than we had planned and well before we were ready to ship.
Stakes are higher. You better be better than these guys.
Big event. This was huge, and we made it huge on purpose to raise the jeopardy. We knew it was going to be a marathon that we were going to run at sprint speed. It was going to take everything out of us. Damn the torpedoes. It's full speed ahead.
This is it. We're coming. These amazing devices.
You remember much about that day?
Yeah, well, I remember my impression of Mark was, most of the vision of Jobs, that he had better interface.
Presenting Mark Porat.
Today we're going to introduce the vision. Today we're introducing the technology, introducing the alliance. But let it be said, it's about feelings. How you feel about the communication with another person. To me, the relationships of your life is the fabric of your life. That's the stuff that defines who we are as people.
Mark was one of the most charismatic presenters you could ever imagine.
But let me just hold it up for you so you can see what this thing is about. Its intent is to be with me all the time.
The thing about Porat when he speaks is everybody in the audience says to themselves two things. They say, my God, this guy's right. I can go to the roof of this building, and if I jump, I will fly. And the second thing they would think is, and that guy up there on stage and me, we're the only two guys who really get it.
This, we hope, will be with you as simply part of your existence. It'll be that useful. The minute I see it in the store, I smile. It's about having fun. It's about leisure. It's about entertainment.
I just recall listening to him and thinking, yes, yes.
When we were talking about reinventing telephony, we meant it. This is inexorable. The world of personal communications, when it's fulfilled, possibly in one generation, when I say generation, I mean my children, my son and daughter, when they walk around with these things, they'll be wireless.
Reporters would leave these briefings saying, my God, I mean, forget the story I'm writing. I want that. The world that they just described to me, I want to live in that world. I want my kids to live in that world.
A tiny gadget that combines a telephone, a fax machine, and a personal computer.
Cellular phone, a pocket pager, and a notepad.
Sounds a bit like something from Star Trek. Could send and receive messages, order tickets, they get the latest headlines or stock quotes, and also you can talk on it.
It was wall-to-wall coverage. New York Times, Wall Street Journal, LA Times.
It was front page in The Economist, front page on the Wall Street Journal. No small thing.
If this works the way this industry wants it to work, I mean, this is going to be huge. I mean, you are talking about the potential for hundreds of millions of devices eventually.
IBM is conspicuously absent from the alliance. So is Microsoft, which is racing to develop its own personal communicating software standard.
Some say it's revolutionary. Others simply say it's magic.
So we got a ton of coverage. And that's also where the first questions were, well, this is huge. Are they going to be able to actually fulfill on that vision?
Well, Mark Porat, the president and CEO and co-founder of General Magic, thank you very much for being here. What do you see as your startup date to actually have one of these things in somebody's hand?
We'll be talking about dates and about product features in some detail this summer. But I did want to have a chance to answer your...
In other words, nobody's saying when one of these is going to be available.
That's correct.
Okay. So
I caution, I counsel caution.
He has the written record of it. But what we have is we have sort of It did not go smoothly after that at all. Moments where somebody has to start doing something. And what we decided is that for each of those important moments, we want to make sure that there's real responsibility for someone to, to say, I'm at this important moment, start doing your work. Mark and Bill and Andy together decided, well, this is the person to manage the engineering team. That's what they wanted me to do. And then there was this one day where I came to talk to all of them at once, and they said, oh, we don't need a manager. We don't want you because we don't need a manager. Our leaders are Andy and Bill. That's what makes this place great is we don't have managers.
We can be engineers without a manager, and we know what's best. Managers are just going to get in the way. We don't need program managers. We don't need any of that stuff. We're just going to make it happen.
There was a fearlessness and a sense of correctness, no questioning of could I be wrong? None. Because that's what you need to break out of Earth gravity. You need an enormous amount of momentum. And that momentum comes from suppressing introspection about the possibility of failure.
The Alliance was the biggest and most complicated consortium of global companies that had been created up until that time in American business. We had competitors at the table. Sony and Panasonic hated each other, and it made it hard for them to commit fully to our business. We needed to become independent, and the only way we could do that was by selling stock to the public. It was the first so-called concept IPO, which is when a company could go public without any revenue, let alone any profits. What made that possible? The imprimatur of Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs was the gold standard for investment banking. And if Goldman was going to do your initial public offering, it meant that you too met the gold standard for being a real company with real prospects. Didn't have a product, didn't have a revenue stream, but it seemed cool at the time. Let's invest.
The best investment bankers came to pitch us. One of them came and said, I must have a piece of the IPO. What would it take? If I gave you the shirt off my back, would that do it? And I said, yeah, it would. And he stripped down.
The moment I film this stuff.
And there we were standing in the conference room with a half-naked banker. He got the deal. He participated in the IPO.
Well, where's that right enable happening? Right here. So then do they make any 44 260s and 5 volts without this right enable thing?
Probably the most challenging part of the product was deciding what not to do, what to do and what not to do. Because it was really hard. You're building a very complex platform. And so just often things would take longer.
For me, I had never done anything like that. It was a huge challenge. You really had to work very hard to build what we were trying to build.
Didn't you look at this?
I really had to up my game. And they were like, Fidel, you're doing it wrong. You should be doing it that way. And I'm like, no, I think it's the right way. But I couldn't really articulate the way they could. So yeah, I had to challenge myself and kind of go in the dark hole.
At 3 volts though.
Once we got the basics there, you'd take the new chip that had whatever the latest software that everybody had put together, pop it in, and begin to see the screen come to life.
We could see it and we could touch it and feel it. But the responsiveness of the device was really slow. The processor was underpowered, for example. So the experience was a bit tap, tap, and, kind of annoying.
I was sitting in a lot of the user test labs. The engineers would sit there and say, no, lady, what are you doing? Don't tap that. No, it's not there. It's over there. We'd all go, oh. There was some comedy there.
The thing at the bottom that kind of looks like a comb, I haven't the slightest idea what that is.
This doesn't look like it's working.
Is this noise supposed to be here?
Okay, we have crashed. We just crashed.
It had this little top hat. Like some operating systems have a little spinning wheel, or a top hat would just start spinning. And just start spinning. It just keeps spinning. You just stare at this thing. Finally, you just pull out the battery and reset the device because there's no point in waiting.
No, just unplug it, plug it back in.
It's not my fault, is it? It's the software engineers.
And, it's slowly dawning on us, like, we're not going to get this done.
This isn't a finished program by any means, is it?
The roadshow for the General Magic public offering was flying around in a private jet, flying first class, staying in the best hotels, and having people sit at our feet and lap up what we were saying. The closest thing it comes to is touring with a rock band. We've got a roadie crew that has to set up the cameras and the big screen to make sure that people can see the demonstration of the device.
What we envision is something in your hand that's with you all the time that allows you to have access, whether it's for fun or more importantly for mission-critical applications.
All we did was demonstrate the device. And I would go out in the hallway and I would pretend to be an airline company, and Mark would make an airline reservation, and in real time, Mark would reserve a flight and blow people away because no one had ever seen anything like it.
We got tools, we've got partners, we've got markets that are happening all around us. Give it a clap. Great. That's the right stuff.
The roadshow succeeded beyond everybody's wild expectations. The first concept public offering in Silicon Valley history, and we raised a total of $96 million. That's about as good as it gets. We were kings of the universe, and it was really fun.
Today we would call it going viral. The press loved us. They heard the vision, they saw what was going on, and boom, they're in.
I was just afraid Mark thought things were just too easy to do. How are you going to get the price point? How are you going to keep it from crashing? How are you going to make it fast enough? How are you going to make it readable? I just didn't think he was focused on that stuff.
We were so distracted by all the articles that we started to believe our own tale, that we're going to conquer the world, but yet we hadn't finished.
We were not paying attention to the other external trends that were happening around us because we were aiming so far out in the future. It was like the current context around us really wasn't considered that relevant because we were aiming so far out. But boy, was that relevant.
Put simply, the internet is just a network of networks.
In recent years, a relatively unknown communication system called the internet has exploded in popularity with such intensity that it's predicted that over 25 million people will be using it by the year 1998.
And we had an intern who was like, hey, everybody, it's all about the web. You guys are totally missing it. He was telling us this. It was probably late 94, early 95, and that you could go to every website at that time. There was a list of them, and you could go and visit all the websites. And it was all very rough. There was mostly text. Having graphics was leading edge, and we were working on this rich multimedia system with audio and graphics and things animating, and the richness was far beyond what the web was. But the web had worldwide reach.
This other force had appeared, and we weren't looking at it. We were in bed with AT&T, with our private cloud.
The whole point about having a closed network is that people had to pay to use it, and that was where AT&T was going to generate its revenue. The problem was pivoting toward the World Wide Web. That would have meant cannibalizing or perhaps even wrecking AT&T's business model, and we just couldn't do it.
I have to invest the time to keep banging on the web with my mouse and my keyboard, because unless I do that, nothing happens. The web is passive.
But even though it's all here right in front of us, we were unable to see that was the way to go.
One of our developers, Pierre Omijar, very quiet, soft-spoken guy, he had a web page, and down at the bottom it had a click-through called Auction Web.
And every once in a while I would pass his desk and he'd go, Dee, come over here, let me show you this. So he would show me what he was doing, and of course he explained it as it was going to be kind of a garage sale-y, flea market kind of site. Okay, why do we need that?
And he came to me and said, do you want to help grow it? Is it something you think is a good idea? I'd like to turn it into a company, possibly. Would you help me spin it out? I just looked at him and said, this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. You're going to get strangers to trust each other on the internet? Lots of luck. We're not interested in have fun.
He tried to get lots of people to join, and nobody would join because they just thought it was a flea market. I took him down to an investor conference in Palm Springs. So I got 15 people in there, and 7 of them left during his presentation because it was a long, boring presentation. He had this ponytail down to his waist. He didn't look like the kind of guy who's the CEO of any kind of company. Some investors said, never do that to me again, because that's a flea market. You could never make a good brand out of that. And that's how eBay was launched. We had him in our midst, and we had no idea. He was a tech support engineer and a very quiet guy. We had no idea.
Meanwhile, we're hearing about, the partners need a final version to put in the ROMs to ship.
Any deferral of schedule is very politically charged. So what we decided to do was just remove the schedule from that information.
Sony was just, insistent about that. Like, where is it? Where is it? And there's only so many excuses you can come up with to try to put them off, to say, just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. They're losing patience.
Hope to deliver that by December 1st. We're still evaluating that to see whether we can meet that date.
And then we started blowing schedules.
It's in development right now.
We expect to be delayed by approximately 1 quarter.
What is going on here?
I've just gotten a little sick of all this complaining about our schedule slips, damn it. We do a good job here. We're a little slow sometimes, and we have a lot of bugs. But so what?
I started to understand where the cracks are starting to begin, and where we didn't have a real message and a real clear what we were building and what we weren't building, and for whom and for how much it was going to cost and when it was going to ship.
It's kind of the pet shop where the animals are kept. And the animals have different behavior when you pick them up. When I pick the cat up, he kind of scrunches up against the glass, and when I drop him, he tumbles.
These really creative people, but they would have these flights of fancy. I mean, they just go off in all kinds of crazy directions. And they were amazing ideas. But dudes, we got to ship a product at the end of the day.
And during that time, the Newton shipped.
Ladies and gentlemen, Newton is here. Newton was a product that was ready to go. It was all about new technologies.
The most important thing that I've ever been involved with in my entire life.
It's bad enough you get betrayed by them, but now they're going to try to put you out of business.
There was always something else to be tuned up. There was some bug to be caught. There was some memory leak to be plugged up. And the date got later and later and later. I'd made commitments. The company had made commitments. And the commitments were now being undone by our inability, or maybe even cultural unwillingness, to let something out the door that wasn't like perfect. And I felt the first wave, that first zap of terror.
We were too dazzled by what it could possibly do to kind of realize we were biting off more than we could chew. I was still in creative mode, working on a flipping coin. So the game room would have something in it, whereas you tap the coin, it would flip around heads or tails and gave you a random number for feedback and all. And I was setting a bad example for the team by doing stuff that was relatively frivolous when we needed to concentrate on the boring but necessary parts. And it really made me do some soul searching, that I was kind of leading people astray and not having quite the right seriousness of our situation.
The deadline is everything. Meet this date or miss your opportunity to change the world. I don't think we had anyone saying that.
I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. I love all the people I work with, but something ain't right. My heroes, these icons that I know as people now, how are they letting this happen? Don't they see? Aren't they listening? Kind of like parents, right? At some point when you grow up, your parents can do no wrong, and then they can only do wrong. It was kind of that same thing. I grew up as a person, and these people who I saw as parents and as educators started to become, humans as well in my eye, not just icons. And that's when it kind of flipped for me, like, I can't just follow the leader anymore. You need to be a leader yourself.
One night, Sunday, I think, and I walk into the building and I hear slam, slam, bang, bang, bang. No idea what's going on, no idea. and just banging away, building what looked to me like bunk beds. I said, guys, what are you doing here? And they said, we're building bunk beds.
Why do you need to build a bunk bed in your office? Why don't you go home to sleep?
We had to go up against it, pull it together to get something out the door. We got to get serious.
I remember like sleeping on, some random mattress on the floor of house. We didn't care about all this. We didn't care whether we had furniture or anything. We're just doing this thing.
So we're just working all out all the time. And I was actually sleeping under my desk sometimes, and then I would get up in the morning and just start working again.
It's nighttime. People are clustered around a handful of machines. The rabbits running around under their feet. The parrot is squawking and shitting all the time. It smelled horrible. It was dank, musty. It smelled of sweat and exhaustion, and no one wanted to be anywhere else.
But we'll have it tomorrow morning, right? So
every single one of us, it was all hands on deck, ship or die.
There was this constant drumbeat of we have to ship, we have to ship, we have to ship.
In terms of intensity and pressure, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. In some ways, we were never closer to each other, and we never felt better about what we were doing because we were getting there.
My fingers?
Both hands.
That will never work.
One finger on either hand.
It's quick. There's a pleasing pace to it. That's very cool.
A little better?
Yeah, much better. Okay, much better.
It's this incredible experience of sort of all these different people working like a symphony.
This thing that we imagined now has become real.
We've done it, and now you can see it and touch it and use it as well.
It's time to ship. We need to get this out.
It was 1 a.m. Everyone was there. Everyone was exhausted. It was a classic decision that every project has to make, like go or no go. So here we all were in it together and saying, like, is this it? Are we done?
Mark Peratt said anyone can speak about whether we should ship. Is the software ready? And tons of engineers said we should wait. Mark listened and he said, our partners have given us a deadline. We're shipping.
So welcome to the first public demonstration of General Magic's technologies. I want to talk a little bit about, we worked really hard the last 4 years putting all this stuff together. I feel, emotional about it. What I want to do is talk about the best part of working on this the last 4 years is not the invention. I love helping create this stuff, but the best part was working with the incredible team that we've assembled at General Magic. This isn't the work of just me and Bill, but the work of some incredibly brilliant, passionate people that I'm honored to be able to work with. And I think these guys, we're working with a bunch of young programmers in their 20s that are going to go on to do things that dwarf anything that Bill and I have ever done. They're just incredibly great. And so, without further ado, with great pride and representing Bill and the amazing team at General Magic, here it is, world, Magic Hat.
It's a new way to reach just about anyone, anywhere, anytime. You're only a press of a button away. Sony Magic Link. And what it takes off your desk is only matched by what it takes off your mind. Sony Magic Link Intelligent Communicator. It clears your desk. It clears your mind.
It's still so very disturbing when you work on something for so long and then you let it out into the world. It's like having this baby and like, have you raised it well enough? Is it gonna be okay on its own out there? It's a little traumatic actually to let something out like that.
Hey, these really belong to you. Somebody asked me that. They're yours.
Whatever doubts we had or whatever disagreements, anything, we were on. This was the moment, this was the launch. We were gonna make it. We were gonna succeed, and it was gonna be amazing. So, what are we doing? Today we're making the first steps. This afternoon, it's out there. The devices are out there and the service is out there.
We had arranged to have a demonstration day at Fry's, a famous place for new product introductions. And a few famous people from Apple came just out of courtesy. We went into the store and all of the demonstration stuff was way in the back behind the refrigerators. You couldn't see anything. And it became clear that the Fry staff had not been trained on how to demonstrate the devices or even knew what they were or who we were or why we were there.
We talked about our user as being Joe Sixpack. And I do remember sitting around thinking, Joe Sixpack really doesn't have email. And if that was our target, it was very early for Joe Sixpack.
I worried about the size, I worried about the battery life, I worried about the $800.
I don't even know which button to push.
No, I don't need that.
You might need it.
I don't.
What it really comes down to is a personal decision as to whether or not you really want to be in touch all the time.
My stomach turned sour and I thought, we're doomed. No one came. No one bought it. Nothing.
And so we were waiting for the sales to happen. And the sales numbers were low, very low. And there were some problems with the AT&T network. So bit by bit, you began to get evidence that this thing wasn't like a rocket ride. It was going to be more difficult. And that's the reality that started to sink in, is that this is not as easy as it seems.
We had sold fewer than 3,000 devices, and almost all of those had been sold to friends and family of the company and our partners, virtually none to ordinary consumers. I was looking at the list of the names of the buyers, and I recognized all of them. I knew who they were, and I thought that we don't have a business here. We're not going to make it.
Share price. That's, I think, the greatest concern in this room, and that's what we're going to take on head on. The explosion of the internet has forced rethinking of strategies across the entire industry. I have believed for years and continue to believe that the notion of taking intelligent devices with you, of the scale from this big to that small, is for real as a market. I continue to believe in the wireless dimension. There will be smartphones. There will be smart pagers, and maybe even things like intelligent watches for all we know. It's a question of resources, priorities, and market readiness for us to figure out where the sweet spot is.
Can't we make some money while this is going on?
This guy from the San Francisco Chronicle, I remember he just drilled me. He was like, you guys are going out of business. Sony is going to drop you. I have sources that have told me that. What is the company's response? What happens once Sony drops you? You guys are dead. It's like, dude, you didn't work here for 3.5 years, pulling all-nighters 7 days a week. You didn't see the future, know what was coming. And now it's all just in ashes around you.
I'm looking at spreadsheets in my office and thinking, in a half hour, I'm going to have to get on the phone and talk to the analysts from Goldman Sachs. And I don't know what the hell I'm going to say. How do I create the impression that there's a future here? Mark did it, but I was at a loss.
The initial experience is terrific. And where we're headed is sublime. And to get from terrific to sublime takes time.
I don't want to be negative.
Why is this tilted?
It's not tilted.
There's been a lot of hype.
I would not say that in the video. Where we're starting, as exciting as it is not where we're going to end up. This will take time. It's a voyage that takes time. It's a journey that takes time. This will take time. It takes time. You have to be patient.
Perfect, absolutely perfect. You know, I just thought as you were talking how complicated it is for you to be figuring out what you can and can't say.
Yeah,
That's a whole other issue I wasn't thinking about. Yeah, cut for a sec. Sorry, Josh.
I was torn up. It was to walk in. There was a week, Phil actually had to set me aside because I was so distraught that there was a week or two that I actually just took off. I didn't even show up for work because I was so distraught. And then Phil actually had to sit me down and go, Tony, what's wrong? You're not you. Like, to go from 80, 120 hours a week to none. And so for me personally, that was a major rocking event. Then the next one disappointment for me is, I started to design devices and I started to try to mold General Magic technology into something that I thought was sellable. And so I created basically a whole product plan and technology plan for what I thought was going to be a successful product. I go back to General Magic and said, look, I have a firmed up product plan. You need to mold your software to build this kind of device. And they just looked at me and said, sorry, we can't do that. We have other priorities. For General Magic, as I saw it, was basically the end.
They were defeated. That was the saddest part about that meeting, is that, and Andy in particular, I think, was the one who said, we can't do this. We're not going to do it. And they didn't have anything left.
I'm a particularly loyal person, so it was very hard for me to leave General Magic. I was fully bought into what we were doing, and I stayed perhaps even longer than maybe I ought to have to try to help change the direction. But it was beyond saving, unfortunately.
It looked like a massive disaster, a failure, a catastrophe. It was a sense of rejection that penetrated right to your heart and your gut. And I just felt sick.
It was devastating. For me, it was really devastating. And I thought immediately, I have to take time off. It's going to be a long time before I start committing to yet another blue sky proposition.
The vision that Mark, Bill, and Andy had sold, not just to the world, but to us, that this was a cool, fun, lovely thing to have, and that everybody would want one, because we did. And we were wrong.
I think the conceptual ideas were there, the user base was not there, the technology was not there, the things to do on it weren't there. It's like inventing the television in the 1880s. You just couldn't. Like, it doesn't matter if you invented it, because you didn't have shows, you didn't have capabilities.
I think there was actually nothing General Magic could have done to succeed, because they were at the wrong time. The way I think about that, it's like a wave. If you start paddling too early, your arms will be tired by the time the wave arrives, and the wave will slide right under you and leave you behind. That's sort of what happened with General Magic. They saw the wave before anyone else, and they thought it was coming sooner, and they got tired before it arrived.
Yeah, but they had all the right talent.
You can become so focused and such a believer in what you're doing that you can miss the change of context in an industry. In this case, the World Wide Web. And General Magic probably didn't pivot fast enough to the post world after the web, but I missed it as well. I was getting increased pressure as the CEO of Apple by the Apple board of why was I wasting Apple's time and money on these post-PC devices and not just focusing on the Macintosh. The result, I eventually got fired by Apple. I learned from failure how incredibly painful it can be when you fail publicly. It wasn't just the little failures, but I had to fail in front of the whole world when I was fired from Apple. It really hurt me for a long, long time. And it wasn't until about 15 years later that I could actually get my head around and deal with it. But the stories of Silicon Valley are always the stories of these incredibly successful companies. And yet, here's a company, General Magic, that wasn't commercially successful. It eventually went bankrupt. And yet, so much of what came out of General Magic is the foundation of everything we take for granted today.
failure doesn't stop me as long as it's on a path towards something really wonderful. But with General Magic, there was a certain deflation in me personally, where I felt like, okay, will I be able to do this one more time? I'm not sure. Because the potential was so phenomenal, and you could see this is going to happen. You know that this is going to happen. And you realize you're not going to be the one that makes it happen. It's even more comprehensive than I remembered. Now that I look at it, I just think, what were we thinking? We were trying to do all this, you know, and we thought we could push the industry, we could make them do it. Not there. It wasn't there.
I'm old enough now to know that it's behind me. You know, it's to create technical revolutions is really a game for people in their 20s. The stamina, you're also not as contaminated by the past. More than anything else, it makes me feel old. That stuff I worked on or bought, you know, they're now museum pieces. Yeah, so there's a General Magic device, the Sony Magic Link. I've thought about it a lot. There's a whole litany of things we should have done differently. A lot of blunders that I'm personally responsible for. It was completely possible to achieve the most ambitious of our visions, but in a staged fashion.
We sometimes need closure on things that are not closable. A peak experience, positive or negative, happens. It's not easy to resolve. In the moment, we all do the best we can do in the moment, at that moment. It's in retrospect that you see what the impact was. I felt a profound feeling of humiliation, shame that I had brought everyone along with such high anticipation and then couldn't, at the end, deliver it for them and for myself, and for them. So I remember coming home one evening. So the kids were still up. Daddy. And Daddy had given it all to perfect strangers. And my wife said, "Don't come home like this." If you need to sit in your car for hours or for all night, don't come back. Don't walk in the door if you're not a person, if you're not present, because you're not wanted. And, you know, it collapsed. It all came tumbling down, and the company didn't work and my marriage didn't work in the same 12-month period, you know. And it all fell apart. Yeah.
Have you talked to your children about this?
Well, I'm talking to them now, aren't I? It's one of the reasons I agreed to make this film. Life is ebbs and flows. When a wave crashes on the shores and the rocks here, you don't think of the wave as having failed. You think of the wave as having done its thing. And the next wave will come, and the next wave. And that's how I think of General Magic. Moment in time.
It's always amazed me, because I haven't seen Mark in many, many years, why there wasn't a second act. Because here was an individual who was so good, so exceptional at what he did well, brought together perhaps the best team. And the reality is, in my mind, Mark never failed, because he actually did conceptualize so many of the products that we have today.
It was a decade of failure in Silicon Valley for me. General Magic was a disaster. Philips was a critical success, but a business disaster. Then I had my startup, and then, during the startup times, the internet crunch happened and I couldn't get any more funding, and that was disaster. So it was a disaster after disaster from a business perspective. But from a personal perspective, it caused me to grow up each time and learn, because I was faced with this real reality of this isn't working, and you better understand why and learn from it. Because I had to go through that to be able to set the stage up for what was to come in 2001 and beyond. General Magic gave us a glimpse of what the future could be. The technology, unfortunately, wasn't there at the time, but those dreams, we kept dreaming.
Tony was very big on music, and he would talk about music a lot, and how someday we were going to have, a little device with all our music on it. And I'm like, okay, why do I need that?
I loved music growing up in Detroit. And I was always sick and tired of lugging my CDs and all this other stuff around. I wanted something where I could take it all the time. MP3 showed up. I was like, music is coming. Next thing I know, I get a call. We've looked at all the MP3 players. We think they're bad. We think there's one that can be done in the Apple way. And then Steve said, now we need you to come on the team to put it together. And then I started calling all kinds of companies all around the valley, around the world, trying to figure out displays, trying to figure out batteries, trying to figure out storage. And then Steve was able, and the team was able to build on top of those and make it even better. And so we're like, it's happening.
Boom. That's iPod. I happen to have one right here in my pocket, matter of fact. There it is, right there.
The magic lesson was, we have to ship it as fast as possible so you can learn from the market and you can iterate quickly. Every year we made sure we had a new version of the iPod, and then we added downloadable apps, games, email, communications, wireless. We had these different pieces, and I'm like, this is starting to come together. I remember this. And it was like I was back at General Magic again in a way, because it's what we talked about just 15 years later. This is real. Steve goes, it's taking off. We need to put it on a cell phone.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is. This is one device.
This has been, at that point, 17 years in Silicon Valley, and we finally were able to realize the dream we had in 1991 on stage, and Steve Jobs talking about it.
We're going to use the best pointing device in the world. We're going to use a pointing device that we're all born with. We're born with 10 of them. We're going to use our fingers. So, let's go ahead and turn it on. All righty.
I was proud to think that, yeah, my God, Tony did it. Tony did it. Everything we wanted to do, there it is. And on the other hand, I was sad that it wasn't us. But I also felt vindicated in some way. The ideas had been right, the timing had been wrong.
Steve would often call me after the big product introductions just to see what I thought. 4 p.m. I was in my office. I got a call from Steve. I was like, oh, what do you think? What do you think? And it was like the worst cell phone connection I've ever heard. It was all like, you can hear Steve, but
So the first thing I asked him was, "Are you talking on an iPhone?" He goes, "No." But I think he was.
Steve told me on the phone he thought a lot about Magic App during the course of the iPhone development, and in particular mentioned the projected keyboard. He had seen that and used it with Magic App, and that gave him faith that that was the right direction to go.
Hey, Zarko.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, I'm in the middle of giving a demo of Magic App for cell phones. It's really exciting. It's working great. You guys did a great job.
Incredible.
Yeah, I hear it. It's almost like you're like in the next room or something.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye.
Had I thought that it would be done by Steve Jobs, if I had known that then, I think I wouldn't have been as devastated, because then I would know that it would be done and it would be done right. It was very gratifying. It had come full circle, started with the Mac, had spawned General Magic progeny had spawned iPhone and Android. I mean, you can't forget the Android.
Thank you for joining us today. Android, obviously, being an open source project, we consider ourselves the shepherd of it.
So you see the vision continues. If you look at sort of Android, Andy Rubendroid, Andy was right there with us, and then he creates Android and he makes it to now where we are.
I mean, here's a test. What if General Magic never happened? Would we have had Android?
Not a chance. I mean, all these things were linked together, one after another.
1 out of every 5 people on the planet use an Android phone, growing every month.
The vision was true. The vision was accurate. The vision is the idea that basically got computing to the last hurdle. The last hurdle was when computing got into the palm of the hand of everybody in the world.
And between Tony and Andy, that's about 98% of the world's smartphones, is those two guys who sat 15 feet apart. That's pretty amazing. And that by itself brings such satisfaction. It's, I can't even describe it.
First obvious thing to mention is that we're not alone here today. We're being filmed for posterity as part of our introduction video. Who knows if any of this will really be in the video.
Imagine a star that went supernova, and everything that you touch today, everything you interact with today technology-wise, is because that star power touched it.
I mean, all these companies, and I don't know if you add up the value of those, what it would be, but they all had their genesis with this crew of just a few dozen people who were at General Magic.
It was one of the only times I've ever felt like there's no weak link in this chain. Everyone on this team is brilliant, is so committed and passionate. What's so rare is having all those things at the same time.
When you look at that class of people and what the world looks like today, that was the training ground for us, for what has shaped the world of today.
We all carry things from General Magic in terms of our view of what could be possible in the future. And as engineers, you can't help but think, can we do this now? How about now? I'm so excited to show you our work, and I'm wearing Apple Watch right here. A lot of General Magic was imagining what the world would be like if some things existed that maybe we would make. And that's so fun to do. You can control both the eyes and the mouth to get just the right expression you'd like to send to somebody. And that is so true in so many fields right now. You're able to actually transform industries by your work in technology.
When you look at someone like Megan taking all of her knowledge and all the things she learned and now bringing it to the government and seeing how the US government is transforming through that.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Good to see you. Is this my seat right here?
It is. President Obama had created the U.S. Chief Technology Officer, which is my job and our team, and really said, come and help me using those new methods on some of these harder problems, these problems that are in our civic space.
This is the future, right?
One of the things that I like to work on is how to use technology to make people's lives better and sort of harness talent and unlock talent. I love thinking about how magic is anywhere, in everyone, and how do you pull that out and really make sure that the talent that wants to do its thing is able to do it. As the human race thrives really on this planet,
it creates all kinds of problems. Education, uniting people, climate change. There's not enough water, there's not enough food. What are we going to do? Those can all be solved with technologies. It's just a question of how humanity uses it. But the reliance on technology for everything, for human interactions, is worrisome. Where people are, you go to anything and everyone's like this, right? So I worry about what happens to society and children and how they interact with each other. You can't change the human race, but you can start to educate them so that they change their behaviors. And so the question is, can we take these powerful tools and do something that really does help a lot of people? Can you inspire a group of young people now to really to be creative and come up with these new ideas?
Tonight we feature an iconic inventor of iPod and iPhone. I would like to bring up 5 numbers to introduce him. 7,279,395,873. This is the number of kilowatt hours saved by Nest thermostat owners. 18, the number of generations of iPod shipped. 300, the number of patents authored. 350 million, the number of iPods sold. Join me in welcoming the one and only Tony Fadell.
Hi, everybody. Let's say you show up now, you're a kid, you show up here in the Valley. What would you tell someone similar to you who just walked in, wet behind the ears in Silicon Valley today?
I'm only up here because of many people in this audience who helped me get here. And that's the magic of Silicon Valley.
We all started at the same place you're in today. Everyone has the same self-doubts and no one's perfect. And when you meet your heroes and when you work with them and they treat you as a peer, learn from it, keep moving. If you're dreaming the right dream, you're on the right path. I've been there before, it's tough, keep going. These people helped me to become the person I am. How can we take this same idea of bold, dramatic change to help create a better society? We are going to have to invent those things and do it in all of these other domains that are being touched or revolutionized by technology. It may seem daunting, it may seem difficult, it may seem impossible, but if you just find the right people and keep seeking out knowledge and advice and keep staying open to make a better world, regardless of where you come from, great things can happen.
We judge things by the moment at which we feel that they've made an impact on the mass culture. They're in the anthropology. They're in the culture of how we see ourselves and how we come to expect the world to be. And I don't think that'll happen for another 10 years. I think we'll build to it incrementally, and every quarter and every year it'll get closer and closer. But I don't think it'll be until the 21st century when the stuff we're working on today becomes unexceptional. Unexceptional. Not worth making a video about. And that's the test of, except for historical documentary purposes, and that's the test of, hey, we've made it. We've really made a difference. We've really changed the world.